Warning. This show features dark subjects which may be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Chaos Jar. I'm the loud and obnoxious one, J. West Secord. Hey! Over to my left is our host and big bag of facts, Bad Ben.
Hey!
And as always, we are joined by Negretzigo Funko Pop. So, hey! No one can see that, no.
Should have been in the death metal voice.
Oh. It's the death metal version of her too. Hey, and while you're at it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, all the other things. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at BA Chaos Jar, but you can also follow me on Twitter at I'm Glad You Asked _ Ask me questions and you shall receive answers. I'm kind of like, a magic 8-ball, except the answers you may like or may not like. No, actually, no, just like a magic 8-ball. And you can check us out on Facebook at Chaos Jar Podcast, which is also the name of our YouTube channel. And say you have a friend who's not really good with the podcast scene, send them to our YouTube channel to listen to our shit. It is great. And lastly, heartburn. And lastly, if you want to be a patron, you can go to patreon.com/chaosjar and throw us a couple bucks, become a producer, get your name on the show, and, help us buy equipment so this sounds better. Please? Sagraf, make sad crying begging noises like Oliver Twist's "Please sir, want some more" type of thing.
Give us money.
Okay. Good job, Sagraf.
Okay, Mickey Mouse.
We're gonna get sued.
Please, Disney, don't sue us.
Please don't. We, as you can tell, we're begging people for money. We clearly can't afford our own equipment. We cannot afford to pay you. Anyway, I think that's everything. With all that being said, what's going in the jar today?
So we're going to talk about the Dyatlov Pass incident.
I think I've heard of that. The Dyatlov 2, it's like really famous RPG video game.
Sure. All I'm thinking is this being a video game. Terrifying.
You don't get the joke, do you?
No, I have no idea what this is about.
Sounds like Diablo.
I see.
Jesus!
I've never played Diablo, so...
Neither have I, actually.
Wow.
I don't really care much for those types of games.
All 4 people who listen to this podcast just left. They're like, they don't even fucking play about...
They don't even play Diablo? Why am I even listening to this? That was the only reason I came here.
Alright. So... for this, we're going to go all the way to January 23rd.
Sorry, I just had a thought. They don't even play Diablo? You know what? I don't know what to believe anymore. Maybe they don't even live in Canada Town, USA.
I've never heard of this Middle Dakota.
Yeah. That's the point of dissolution.
Wow.
Sorry, continue.
So, we're going to go all the way to January 23rd, 1959. So we're going all the way back in the Cold War.
Oh, man.
This again.
I've done this. I've been in the Cold War like 3 times, so...
Okay, so... on this particular day, there are 10 Russian college students.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to make that clear because it could just be 10 friggin' college students from out of nowhere. But,
so this sounds like the start of a horror slasher flick.
Yes.
Are you just telling me the plot of some movie nobody knows?
Completely. I've made this up on my own. Let's see how well I do.
Starring Danny DeVito.
Yeah. Out of nowhere, he started clipping people's hair.
Yeah. What?
So, these 10 students left... Oh, this is going to be so hard. Sverdlovsk.
Oh.
Yeah. So, railway...
Sverdlovsk.
Yeah. That. The railway train station. And they're going to Sarov. Sverdlovsk was later renamed to Yekaterinburg. Yekaterinburg. You know what? I'm entertained just by you trying to read these.
Yep. We could literally make a whole episode of you just trying to read foreign words.
Russian. It's funny because if I'm speaking French or something, it's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But this, it's like, yeah.
It's close enough to French. I know French has all that skis and vivogs and...
Yeah, and V's turn into F's.
Oh, wait, sorry. I'm confusing it with Russian.
So, it was renamed to Yekaterinburg in 1991. So, this is a major Russian industrial center that they're leaving from. So,
can I just point out to the audience?
Go ahead.
On the script, you've written out the names of these places phonetically in order to try and read them properly.
It's great. Oh, God. So, basically, after the Russian Revolution and Russia became the Russian state, Yekaterinburg was named Sverdlovsk after the Communist Party Yakov Sverdlov. It's so bad. So, this happened in 1924, though. This is when they renamed this.
Words are more pronounceable nowadays.
Yes, totally. I can read Russian now.
Yeah.
Modern Russian. So, in the 1930s, it became a better developed place from the Soviet government as they focused on heavy industry at the expense of their people. But, communism works.
From what I've been told, at this point, it's no longer communism. It's just communism was taken advantage of and turned into a dictatorship.
Yes. Well, in theory, communism would work if everybody was equal. And basically, it's that when the power that comes in to be communist actually develops this equal system, they're eventually supposed to give up their power. But that's not what happens.
Exactly. For the record, we're not communists. Please don't come to burn us or our state.
Again, that's just what communist theory is, and there's a whole whack of problems with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, capitalism's not perfect either, but at least you have a...
Capitalism is really bad on the opposite end.
Yeah. You gotta be somewhere in that middle ground.
I think it's called socialism.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, Russian words you can't say.
Yeah. So in the 1930s, they focused on it and they built the famous Uralmash, which is a heavy machine production facility that employed over 15,000 people and built tanks in World War II and a lot of heavy equipment such as excavators afterwards. So there's a lot of they're manufacturing a lot of like blast sintering machines, furnace equipment, rolling mills, presses, cranes, all this stuff for mining. Like, and then they ship these out from this center into like the Ural Mountains and into Siberia. So
Ural what?
Ural.
Ural what?
Ural Mountain.
Ural Mountain.
So during World War II, the state became basically like, they relocated all of the factories to this town, like to this city, and away from cities that were affected by the war, like Moscow and St. Petersburg and stuff like that. They're trying to keep it as far away from the hands of the Germans in case those cities fell. Mm. So it's a good-sized city. There, by the time of the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was 1.2 million people here. And there are still, to this day, some of the tallest skyscrapers in this city. Like
in the
Russia,
world?
In Russia.
Oh, just in Russia.
Yeah. And it's pretty cold because it's further away from the border. It's further away from the border of Europe. It's more into Siberia than...
Oh, so it's into that cold area of Russia that everyone is familiar with.
Yeah. So these 10 students in 1959, in January 1959, are deciding they're going to go off on, and they're going to go and hike through a mountain. Kind of like a ski expedition, which is actually really encouraged by the Soviet government, because at that time they wanted their citizens to take on these extra like missions and hiking and prove that they're great athletes and stuff. So by going off and completing one of these things, they can come back and report, and the government can be like, well, our college students go and hike through mountains. Do the American college students do this? So all 10 of these students are studying at the Ural Polytechnic Institute in the city, and it's the biggest technical institute of higher education in Russia at this time. It's where you can get degrees in like chemical engineering, military science, building materials, heat power, and engineering. So it is very, very much like a skill, like you are building your technical skills here. If you want to be an engineer in Russia, you're going to go here.
Jeez.
The Ural Mountains, where they're going to hike, are 400 miles to the north of here. And it's like super, super cold. Like the winds are harsh, the winters are harsh. There's just snow all year. It's just really, really rough terrain.
If you wanted one more reason to not like Russia, this isn't it, but you probably don't want to go there.
So yeah, because of it, they did this movement, was like a communist youth movement.
That wasn't even a Russian word.
Know, to do this, and you had a communist youth director who you would meet up with and tell him your plan, and then he would like help find people and get you basic equipment and stuff like that to try and get it there. And then you would either accomplish it or die trying, and it gets put into your file. Which, if I love that one of the perks of this is if I die, it still gets in there that I died trying.
For whose benefit is that? The Russian government going, hey, our students are dedicated enough to die for our country.
Yeah, and so by doing these things and having it in your file, you get a better chance of picking up a better job when you graduate. So
especially when you die.
Especially when you die. They put your body there. He's a
called
civil engineer.
It's called poor continuity.
Yeah.
I suffer from this.
Okay. Just so you know, I do this show alone. Wes is actually just a voice.
I'm just a disembodied voice. I'm actually just our editor Secord putting in some weird editing dialogue that seems like Ben is reacting to.
Yeah. I tell the story to myself and I'm surprised. So, each member of these groups, each member of the group were grade 2 hikers with ski tour experience and stuff like that. So they've done this before, and they would be receiving a grade 3 certification upon their return. So this really helps them because they'll be like a higher certification in the Soviet Union, and it makes them really look good on their, like, basically on any application for a job. So, the goal of the expedition was to reach, a Torton.
Torton?
Yeah, which was a mountain 10 kilometers north of the site of the incident that we're going to talk about.
Your phonetic brackets don't help. It uses the fucking...
I know. A Torton. So this route in February is estimated to be like a category 3, so one of the most difficult to cross over. So they're planning on going off on this expedition through one of the roughest terrains they possibly can, all in hopes of coming back and getting a grade 3 certification. I love that they don't even get, like, they're not even grade 3 certification and they're going for a grade 3 like terrain. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, that's how you do it in RPGs, right? If you defeat enemies that are, above your level, you gain more experience.
Yeah, but then most people just grind. Like
like sexy grind?
No.
I
love that you're making a scissoring motion. Yeah.
I don't know how two women would get together unless they just sort of scissored. God,
so,
that's an old reference.
The beautiful thing about this is that these expeditions aren't even like looked at as like missions to accomplish. They're looked at as vacations.
What?
Yeah. You take this is active rest. That's what it's called.
Only the Russians would force work on people and call it a vacation.
Yeah. Because it helps you stay healthy and it makes you learn valuable exercises in social skills along with survival skills. So I love that these are the vacations.
Yeah, yeah. That if you die, it goes on your permanent record that you died trying.
Yeah. So, he died trying on vacation.
Yeah.
He was actively resting, and then he was really resting.
I like the sound of active resting. Like you have your eyes open, you're just like, okay, sleep. And it's just a loud groaning noise. It's just close your eyes. It's just a strain to close your eyes.
Your face gets all red. You're sweating like crazy because you're trying so hard to relax.
And so you get, active resting.
So let's meet the hikers. Number 1, Igor Dyatlov.
You said that like it's a fucking dating game show. All right, let's
contested.
Let's meet the hikers for today's episode.
And here's Rodney Alcala. He was a photographer on this.
Yeah, of course.
So, Igor Dyatlov. So, he had just turned 23. He was a highly experienced skier, hiker, orienter, which is a competitive sport in which participants find their way through various checkpoints across rough terrain with the aid of a map and compass. And the winner of these sports is the lowest time elapsed. So you have to be as fast as you can crossing this really rough terrain. So he was really into this.
So orienter is the sport?
Orienteer. Orienteering.
Oh, okay.
So Igor was the leader of this hiking group. And the entire the pass where this incident takes place is named after him because of that.
Igor Pass.
Igor Dyatlov. Igor Pass.
Igor Diablo. Got it.
All right. So he was a student of the 5th Faculty of Radio Engineering at the university. He was a talented engineer. He assembled a radio in his second year and used it during hikes in 1956 in the Sion Mountains. He designed a small stove in which he brought with him on this trip.
Sion Mountain?
Sion Mountain.
Like the psychic things from D&D?
No, Sayan. Sion Mountain.
That is Saiyan.
I know.
It's spelt Saiyan. Oh my god.
I just picture him on top. I just picture standing on top of the mountain, being like, "Ah!"
Well, no, it's the mountain itself. So the mountain has rather large, spiky peaks that look like Vegeta's hair.
Okay. In later years, it had a mustache.
We don't talk about those years.
Yeah. So, like I said, he designed a small stove, which he brought on this trip. So, he was also dating Zina Kolmogorova, who was also taking part in this hike. The previous year, Igor had led a party on the same route. So, he's done this before. He did this exact vacation before.
Vacation.
This active rest he did before. So he was super confident that there wouldn't be any issues. He also, like, along the way was also Ludmila Dubinina.
Ludmila
Dubinina.
Yeah, no, I think you got Dubinina.
Third-year student at the university, and she's an engineering and economics major, which is funny because I have a degree in economics. So
who cares about you? Go back to the Russians.
I've just never thought about putting economics into the engineering compartment. So she's the youngest member of this group. She's a student in the construction school with emphasis on economics. So basically, she went to the construction school, I guess, to teach how to make a construction company more profitable or make sure that the construction you're doing is profitable. She was very athletic and strong, dedicated, and very outspoken communist. She...
As opposed to the rest of Russia that are not outspoken at all.
That's why she's on this trip. They're just sending her out there to try and die. Like, she fucking got too many fucking ideas.
Yeah. No, we in Russia are all about capitalism in the 1950s when capitalism was invented.
Yeah. So she's very active in the tourist club. So I'm guessing a club that focuses on doing more vacations like this. Like
active rest.
Yeah. She really liked singing, taking pictures. Many of the pictures from this incident are shot by her. So during an expedition to an eastern Sion Mountain, in 1957, she was accidentally shot by another mountaineer who was cleaning his rifle. I just picture her like taking pictures. It's so beautiful. Boom! Oh my god!
Like, where was she shot?
It doesn't say, but she endured a painful injury, and she endured it very courageously.
What is it about Russians? Like, I courageously took a bullet by accident.
Well, during the long and painful transport back, she didn't complain, but felt sorry for causing the group trouble. I'm so sorry you shot me. I know who shot her now. It was John McCain.
Yeah, Jesus.
No, that's Dick Cheney who did that.
Yeah,
Dick Cheney shot that guy and then got an apology for it.
Yeah, I was confused who you're talking
I was like, why
about.
am I talking about John McCain? He's a war hero. So we'll talk about Igor's girlfriend, Zainada. Zinyata? Yeah, Zinyata. I think it's Zinyata.
Zinyidea.
Sure. Kolmogorova. But we're just gonna call her Zina.
yeah, we're gonna call her Zina.
Yeah.
Zina Kolmogora.
Yeah. So she's a 4th-year student in radio engineering. She was an experienced hiker, had her share of difficulties. During one of these trips, she was bitten by a viper. Can you imagine going on vacation and getting bitten by a viper?
Do you imagine going on a vacation getting shot by Dick Cheney? By accident. Sorry. Accident.
So, despite the pain and suffering from the snake bite...
And gunshot.
No. That's from the previous one.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Despite the pain and suffering from the snake bite, she refused to lighten her load, unwilling to cause hardship to the others. These women are just like, no, I'm sorry. I'm causing you so much of a burden.
Oh my, you know what, this sounds very typical chauvinistic 1950s, yeah. Oh no, I don't want to be a burden. And she's just dragging half her body that's limp.
I'm sorry I got bit by that venomous snake. Venomous snake.
Your shirt says venomous.
I know!
And we had a joke about it before we started.
So, people who knew her said that she was the engine of the university, so she was always full of ideas and she was always keeping things going in projects. She was really energetic and she was very outgoing. So, despite being popular in the school, everyone really treated her with interest and respect. As a result, everybody was very, very drawn to her, and she was 22 years old at the time of this.
You know, in hindsight, I'm not sure if the women acting this way is because of sexism of the 1950s or because it's Russia and Russians just generally like, no, I do things without taking pain.
Yeah. I got shot.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, venom just wear off. Kabovrod. Oh, I've never introduced you to Kabovrod.
Yes, you have.
Oh, I did. Oh, okay, cool. Just not on the show?
You have on this show.
Oh,
once.
Kabovrod. You know what? Kabovrod's coming out for this one.
Okay, so next is... Oh, fuck.
That's out of all the Russian names, that's probably the easiest pronounceable I've heard you say.
Yeah. So this is Yuri Krivonischenko. Holy crud.
Well, Yuri is correct.
I fucking know that.
Krivonischenko.
I'm gonna guess so. So Yuri studied construction and hydraulics, and he previously experienced a disaster while working in Chelyabinsk, -40, which is a secret nuclear facility, and it became known as the Kushtumkoy accident. So September 29th, 1957, so 2 years previously, the plutonium plant experienced a radioactive leak, and Yuri, or George, as he was called,
because that's the hard to pronounce name.
So I love George. So was amongst
Yuri or George.
He was among the people who was sent in to clean it up and experienced a massive dose of radiation. He was, I guess he was like basically a class clown. He always looked to have fun with his friends and made a lot of jokes. And he also played the mandolin. He was 5 days shy of his 24th birthday at the time of this incident. And then there's Rustem
Slobodin.
Yeah. So, his nickname is Rustik.
Should I be doing this episode?
I have no idea. So, Rustik was an athletic man, really decent, hardworking, honest, and he was really quiet. He also played the mandolin. I love that they're all playing the mandolin. This ties in with the Denver Spider-Man. Little Susie's out there in the mountains somewhere.
Have you ever seen Cannibal the Musical?
No.
Well, first off, you should see this movie because it's brilliant. But it totally just reminds me of that because it's a musical made by Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Okay.
And they go into a mountain range where it's all snowy and everything, and it's crazy, hilarious, like, corny songs. And I just a picture, and they're all, like, just dancing and singing as they go along in these mountain range, just like that movie.
Wow.
Singing about building a snowman. That was a song in the movie.
Okay. I'm not making the obvious joke here.
What was that?
Would you like to build a snowman?
No, there's no snow outside.
It's coming.
It's winter is coming.
Winter is coming.
Anyway.
So, he often took his mandolin on these long hikes. So I just
he often takes his mandolin on these long.
Like, can you imagine though having the mandolin as you're going? It's exactly what you're thinking. Like, that's all I can think now is they're just walking along and both these guys playing their mandolins. Like,
I just like, all right, time to go hiking. Oops, almost forgot the mandolin.
So, Rustique's dad was a professor at another university in the city, and he was 23 years old at the time of the incident. Signom Sasha Solotarev, so they call him Sasha, and he was a tough World War II veteran and an expert in unarmed combat. He is the oldest member at 38. I love that these guys are 20s, and then there's just this guy who's like just south of 40, and he's like, I'm gonna go on this vacation with you guys. Hi, fellow youths.
It's like my friend Blake in college and university.
Yeah.
30-year-olds surrounded by all these 20-year-olds.
Oh, that was me in fucking police foundations. Everybody around me is 19, and I'm like just shy of 40, just shy of 30. Just shy of 40? I got Benjamin Button disease.
So you were going down.
The beautiful thing about that is that here in Middle Dakota, you can't become a police officer until you're past the age of 24. So all these 19-year-olds are in this class with me, and it's a 2-year program. And they're all like, "Yeah, as soon as I got my diploma, I'm gonna go and try and be a police officer." And I'm like, "You're gonna have to wait a while." Like,
Jesus.
Yeah, I graduated and fucking went right for it. And then they're like, "You're colorblind."
You don't know the difference between red and green. Fuck you.
So,
is that the colorblind you have?
Mine is kind of a red-green deficiency. Certain colors of red come off as brown to me, like certain shades, and certain shades of green come off as yellow to me. I also can't see the color purple. It's either a very odd shade of red, like almost like a pinkish, or it's a dark shade of blue for me.
You know what? I think that's blue-purple colorblind.
Maybe.
Because if you're seeing yellow, it means the blue is not coming through. Hey! Nice time to learn about colorblindness.
Yeah. Anyways, Sasha here, he fought in World War II, as I said. He is a veteran. Survival rate for local men in the area of his age was just 3%. So he went into a war where he was like, the chances of him coming back were essentially slim to none. Like,
oh God. So he's ready for this vacation.
Yeah.
He's dealing with so much stress and everything. The best kind of stress relief is active rest.
Yeah, active rest. And he's single, and he's going with
ladies.
2 ladies. This other guy, Rustic, and Igor. So he joined the Communist Party after the war, and in April 1946, he was transferred to Leningrad Military Engineering University. And later he transferred to the Minsk Institute of Physical Education. And in the early 50s, I need about tree fitty. In the early 50s, he worked as a guide of the tourist base of Artibash in Altai. Yeah, Altai, South Siberia. So he was like, he's experienced with this. He's even a tour guide, like, knowing these things. He could have stayed in the army, but he left it. And then he took the tour guide experience and decided to go on this expedition with them. He never had any kids, but has a lot of strange tattoos, including his birth year, which is 1921.
He doesn't have any kids, but instead of kids, he got tattoos.
Yep.
Kobovrod, appreciate this mentality.
Yeah. So he has his birth year, 1921, some military slogans, and a few names of unidentified people. So he just got people's names on him. I'm going to guess people that he knew in the war who died. And he's trying to honor them.
Kobovrod appreciate this sentiment. Kobovrod's children were born from tattoos.
That's all I think now is the tattoo just leaps off.
So children are made entirely of muscle and ink.
I love that we haven't even gotten through all the people on this thing.
I'm sorry.
It's so good. So, next is Alexander Kolovatov. Kolovatov? Yeah, Kolovatov.
Kolovatov.
Yeah. So, he's 24 years old, and he's a student of nuclear physics. Fourth-year student in physics major. Yeah, as a physics major. So he's studying nuclear physics as a physics major. He finished school originally at the Mining and Metallurgy College and majored in metallurgy with heavy non-ferrous metals. He was a really good student. He was also very cautious. I would be too if I'm working with nuclear energy.
Debatable for me.
Yeah. And he really enjoyed smoking antique pipes. They brought a hipster with them. I just love it. I love that there's these two guys with mandolins, and there's one girl who's been shot. The other one's been bitten by a snake.
Hey. Now, for 1 second here, he can't be a hipster. It's 1950s, so this stuff would actually have been
hip.
Yeah. And the hipsters didn't evolve until after the hippies evolved. They evolved from hippies.
Okay.
You know, like Pokemon. So you get hippie, then you get the hipster. And
is that at level 38?
Close. It's just shy of 40. I'd say about 38.
So, anyways, I just pictured the two guys with the mandolin, the two girls, Igor, and then Rustic, and then this guy smoking his pipe as they're playing the mandolin, and he's just walking there. Oh, yeah.
I'm smoking a pipe. It's turning into some weird Russian hiking musical.
What I love, too, about what you're doing is that he's just like... So you obviously don't know how to smoke a pipe, and this guy doesn't either. He's just pretending. Why don't you like that?
Because it goes with the rhythm.
I don't want them to know where we are by sending them smoke signals.
Who's them? The capitalist pigs.
Yeah, the Americans. They'll find us.
In the middle of this Russian mountain.
Yeah.
All right. So, let's finish off this list here.
Number 8, Nikolai Vladimir Rovik. Okay, yeah, Vladimir Rovik.
That is probably the easiest name to pronounce, just because we're so familiar with the name of Vladimir.
Yeah, and Nikolai. It's so easy. He graduated from the university in 1958 with a major of civil engineering. Son of a French communist who was executed in the Stalin years. I love that he's still a communist. He was born...
He's from a long line of communists.
He was born in a concentration camp for political prisoners.
What?
These people are just like a hodgepodge of people. Like,
why do they sound like... Every time you describe them, they've gone through, like, some of the worst tragedies and shit, and yet they still sound like happy-go-lucky cartoon characters.
No wonder this is their vacation.
Yeah. Jesus.
So, he was liked for, his friends liked him for his energy, he had a good sense of humor, and he was a very friendly, open character. He comes from a concentration camp.
Oh my god!
I guess you have to have a good sense of humor and be very friendly and open if you come from a concentration camp.
Like, Jesus Christ, what is with Russia?
He also was known to be very nurturing and helped younger or weaker members of the group carry things. So
that's the only thing that makes sense.
He also would fix their bags to reduce pain and make them more comfortable because he would know from being in a concentration camp.
Jesus Christ!
Yuri Yudin, who is one of the few people who doesn't go through the... he started on the trip but didn't end up in the incident. He mentioned that Nikolai helped him in his first serious trips in the Siberian forest. Nikolai promised his mother that this would be his last hiking trip, and he was known to his friends as Kola. Yeah. And then there's...
yeah.
And then there's Yuri Doroshenko. Yeah, I'm guessing Doroshenko.
Yeah, that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, so a 21...
Pretend you have a Russian accent, then try to pronounce it. That's kind of how it works.
So
Doroshenko?
I'm not very good with Russian accents.
I don't think you're good with any accent, but that's not a...
I'm pretty good with some accents, but not a lot.
Oh yeah, like English and French.
Yeah, totally. I also can do a very good Mexican Canadian.
That was me!
I started it.
I started it, so I'm taking credit for it?
Completely.
Shut up, Wes.
Yeah. So, again, I do your voice.
This is all you, edited by Secord.
So, he's 21 years old, radio engineering student at the university.
A lot of Yuris.
And yeah, it's a very common name. He had an impulsive personality and was famous at the school's hiking club for having run at a giant bear with a geologist hammer while on a camping trip. I love...
Can we just follow that story? Because that sounds more interesting.
So great. And then he was once involved in a relationship with Zina, and he even met her parents, and then they broke up but continued on a good relationship even while she started to date Igor.
For the record, people, Zina in this case is Zina.
Yeah.
Not the Xena. Yeah.
In all honesty, though, I wouldn't want to go on this trip with my ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend. Like,
I wouldn't want to go on this trip.
Period.
Yeah.
So, and then there's Yuri Yundin, who is, he's the hiker that turns back at the beginning of the trip.
That's the least Russian name out of all these.
Yeah, Yuri Yundin.
Yundin.
He would actually live to the age of 75. Like,
good for him.
Yeah, not bad.
He decided not to go on the rebellious communist vacation through the mountains.
Yeah, he just decided to go back.
Hey guys, I don't think I can do it. You guys have fun without me.
So, they were assisted by the university's head of provision distribution, and they packed things like oatmeal, 3 kilograms of salt. It's a lot of salt. Knives.
Were they planning to, clear the trail? With just pure
All I can think is that the salt you use for like your driveway and like stuff, that is like I think 5 kilograms. So could you imagine having to carry something that's just slightly smaller than that with you? Like, but I guess there's 10 of you divided up amongst 10 of you. I don't know. Knives, felt boots, and other accessories. Rustic brought his mandolin.
Of course. You always have to bring your man. Oh, it's time for a hike. Let's grab mandolin.
Well, it was the main source of it was going to be the main source of their entertainment. And then
I almost feel like that line came from Rustic and nobody else. It was supposed to be main form of entertainment, and you look at the rest of them, they're just shaking their heads and looking very tired, and they never slept because he wouldn't stop playing.
So they pooled all their money together, and they had money was super tight for them, and they'd also been given 1,000 rubles by the trade union community of the university, and they put that into their money as well. There was an 11th member of the group who was supposed to join them, Nikolai Popov, nicknamed the Morose Fellow, which I'm guessing this is why he didn't come. Popov had already graduated from the university. He wasn't a student anymore, and he missed the train.
Guys, wait! Guys!
I brought my mandolin!
I also brought the mandolin!
Rustic told him the wrong time. He was gonna bring his mandolin, and he was like, no.
No! Only Rustic have mandolin.
Yes, train leave at 10:30. I'm terrible at this.
I know. You make him sound like a caveman. Train leave at 3:30.
All right. So, January 24th, 1959, by 3 a.m. On the morning of January 24th, they have exhausted their stock of songs and they're already exhausted. Zena recorded in her diary that the rest of them had all fallen asleep, and she surveyed the darkness outside the train window. After leaving the city well behind them, the train pulled into the town of Sarov at 7 a.m. The group arrived at Sarov. Yeah, in Sarov. So Sarov. And Yuri Krivonishchenko is arrested by the police. Yuri, so you not the one that goes back, but the one that is on this trip. He gets arrested by police for creating a disturbance at the railway station.
There was 3 Yuris.
There's 2 of them.
Yeah, the one that got left behind, and then there's 2 others.
No. The one that's on this trip, Yuri Yudin. He's on this trip, but he'll turn back. And then there's the other Yuri, who is... Yeah, he's the one that studied construction and hydraulics, and he was the one who survived the nuclear disaster.
Yeah,
also known as George.
Just one more Yuri.
Where?
No. That one.
Oh, yeah, there is 3 of them. Okay, yeah. The one that went after the bear.
Yeah! So we can call them George, Bear, and Yudin.
Wow. So, George here is arrested for creating a disturbance at the Sarov railway station. They just got there at 7 a.m. They left at 3 a.m., fell asleep on the train, woke up. He was just super grumpy. It's like...
I remember there being 2 guys with mandolins. Was he the other one?
I'm thinking so. So a policeman had been staring suspiciously at the group, and they felt intimidated. And then in Zena's diary, they stated that they had not broken or violated any law under communism, and the atmosphere of intimidation annoyed Yuri, so George, and he started singing, which was enough for the policeman to grab him and haul him away. He told the police,
I am getting very
uncomfortable.
I'm getting very uncomfortable. Gori! my skeet.
The police told the group that Section 3 of the local railway regulations forbade all activity that would disturb the peace of passengers. So they just didn't like his singing. And they just hauled him off to jail. Xena made a diary entry that
Girls, they want to have fun. Oh, girls just want to have fun. Actually, they predate that song.
Yeah. So, Xena made a diary entry that stated that Sarov must have been the only station where songs were forbidden. So, anyways, as they keep going, they get him out of jail, and they settle the matter with the police amicably. So, no big deal. He's released. He's not going off to a gulag.
Jesus.
The one that survived the concentration camps, like, ooh, thank God.
And I...
Can you imagine? They get out of the station and he's still feeling uncomfortable, so he just lets out this, like, ballad. And the police are, like, chasing them to the train station.
Scaramouche, you do the fandango.
So, anyways, the group had 11 more hours to kill before they could take the next train to their next stop at Evedale, which left Sarov. So they get there at 7 a.m. and their next train is at 6:30 p.m.
Oh, I've actually had to do something like that before.
Yeah,
I hate when they do that.
So they're waiting at the railway station after getting George here out of jail, and a janitor heated water for them and made arrangements so that they could store their equipment. It was a free day for the group, and the diary entry for that day was made by Yuri Yudin, the one who turned back. Yuri wanted to visit the Natural History Museum, and so that's where they went. They also visited a local factory, which I guess is a form of passing time in communist Russia. Like, well, let's also go to the factory and watch everybody else work. As we're on our active vacation.
On active vacation in Russia, people go and people watch working.
So at 12 p.m. when they went to do this, it was the first part of the school day was over, and the group organized a meeting with school children in order to talk about the sports tourism that they were doing. So they're basically giving school kids this like prep thing about like, we're doing this for the good of the communism. Like, you can do it too, kids. You can go through Siberia on your vacation.
This is vacation.
They catch the train. They make it to Evedale railway station just after midnight on the 25th. And they wait for the transport to Vizhai for the following morning. So again, they're stuck there. They get there at midnight, and they have to wait till the morning in order to catch the next train.
Holy shit, how long till they actually get to the mountain? Do they even get to the mountain?
Okay, we're going to continue on. So Evedale, where they are, is a small and very old Russian settlement of 15,000 people today. So it was known as a gold mining settlement, and then later became a prison labor camp, or a gulag, in 1937, and a town proper in 1943. And it's the site of the first Russian wooden fortress built in the Ural Mountains in 1589. So these guys have been way out there, but settled for a very long time.
Right.
So they travel from Evedale to Vizhai, and they spend that night in Vizhai. Their accommodations were described by George as a so-called hotel, and it was just very basic standards of like anything. Like, they slept two a bed, so two in a bed. Both Sasha, so Alexander, and Yuri and George. I'm just gonna go with their nicknames. Sasha and George slept on the floor. And the town is super tiny. There's only a couple hundred people here. So they literally probably just had like one room and like a bed in there, and then the rest of them just hunkered down.
Jesus.
So they leave Vizhai on the 26th at 1:10 p.m. and hopping on the back of a flatbed truck to travel to a woodcutter settlement known as Settlement 41. And at this moment, it is negative 17 degrees Celsius, which is just over 1 degree Fahrenheit. It is freezing cold in the back of that truck. Like,
I mean, it's all right.
Sure.
My hometown's worse.
I wouldn't disagree.
But I assume we're going to get worse than that.
So, this Camp 41 has a hostel there, mostly because geologists and workers stay in the area because it's a woodcutter settlement. So they're going to make sure that the ground is, like, anything they find in the ground is not gold or anything of value, and they want all the wood that they can get. So you need people to mine that up and cut down the trees. And so they set up a hostel there. The group were given their own private room, and it was because of their status as educated students.
Ooh.
So could you imagine what the other one, like everybody else is staying in? Like,
probably a hallway.
Yeah.
Probably some, like, just shitty dormitories, and then these students get, like, a really nice private bedroom.
Yeah. Everybody else is, like, curtains between them.
Yeah, exactly.
If that.
God,
So,
I stayed in a hostel once, and it was, like, nowadays, so you get this tiny room with a door and 2 beds, but, like, it's basically like living in a 10-person apartment. It was awful. And that's modern day.
Yeah. I stayed in a hostel in Mexico, and the guy checked me in, and then I went up into my room, and it was a very shitty room. And when I asked him where the bathroom was, because I thought maybe it's like a communal bathroom, he told me that 2 blocks down the street there's a restaurant. And I was like, okay. So I went into the room, locked the door, but then about 20 minutes later, the door opens and some guy is screaming at me in a language I don't understand. It could even be Russian for all I know.
We've learned that you don't speak it well.
Yeah, I don't speak Russian. But
in Mexico, some Russian guy broke into your apartment.
Now you're Japanese?
No, Japanese would be
But anyway,
you hear the difference.
Yes, I do. But anyways, so then he runs down and gets the guy from the front desk. The front desk guy comes up and is like, "Thought you checked out." And I was like, "No, I just checked in like 20 minutes ago." And he's like, "Oh," and I was like, "And I locked that door." He's like, "That's for show."
Oh my god!
I love the 2 blocks that way is the bathroom, and the lock is for show. Like, so me and a friend pitched on an actual hotel room. Like,
I thought you checked out. I checked in.
So they spend the night in this settlement 41.
Yeah.
And then the next morning they leave for an abandoned settlement, which is about 20 huts 15 miles away, using a borrowed horse and cart to take their packs. So they just went the rest of the way on horse and cart to this abandoned settlement.
It feels like the further they go, the further back in time their rides get.
They spend the night of the 27th and 28th of January in one of the huts at the banks of Lavaza. Yeah, Lavaza River. Lavaza.
Yep.
So, on the 28th, Yuri Yudin decides he's just done with this and he's going back. He says that it's because of severe back pain. He has sciatica, and it's causing him pain in not just his back but in his legs. So the group of 10 is now down to 9. So Yudin is gone. Yuri Yudin is gone. There's only 2 Yuris left.
Okay, so Yuri Bear and George.
Yeah. So their target was to reach the 1,000 8,234 meter mount.
That's a nice little burp you got there.
I know.
They did it.
I'm Rick now.
Yeah. Hey, Morty, listen to them about these Russian hikers.
So, they wanted to reach Mount Atorton, and it is literally translated to "Don't go there" in Manzi, which is like basically they're Aboriginals. They're a type of people that aren't respected very much by the government and have been displaced a lot. So, but they only ended up at the slopes of another mountain called Kolovatov, which is the mountain of the dead in that language.
I did not know there was an Aboriginal tribe or whatnot in Russia.
Actually, I have a whole thing here for who they are.
Oh, really?
The Manzi are an indigenous people to the area. They migrated to the area sometime in the first millennia BC. Russians made first contact with them at the end of the 15th century, and there are just under 10,000 of them in existence. They were fighters led by chieftain warlords. A bishop tried to Christianize them in the 15th century, but in a raid in 1455, they killed him. Like,
you said that so elegantly. They killed him
because they tried to bring him in. So basically, they've been treated how Native Americans are treated in on North America.
I assume they must look similar to like the Inuits and stuff like that.
I'm guessing so. Industrialization and culture expansion has really pushed them out of their homelands, and they have a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. So the indigenous around here had some hunter-gatherers, but they mostly set up settlements and stuff like that. For them, they were a strictly hunter-gatherer lifestyle. They hadn't gone into settlements.
So they were partly nomadic as well.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So basically everything can be verified by like journal entries up to here, and now it's like because of everything that we've gone over is all in journal entries. From here it's kind of pieced together based on what we're going to find from the diary entries and photographs.
So basically from here on, you are following the Russian Blair Witch Project.
Yep.
It was before cameras, and even if it was during cameras, it would probably still be done through photographs and diary entries, because that's how Russians be.
Yeah.
I'm being culturally insensitive.
Yeah.
But let's be fair. Russians.
So, once Yuri Yudin has left took his leave, those that remained of the group set out on skis. So they went into the wild terrain with skis, and the area is known to have Manzi hunters in them. So these people do live here, so there's not a lot of settlements out here, but they are around. So you could run into them, and they're not very friendly.
I wouldn't imagine so.
So they went. So based on diary entries, they went up and along the river Lozova, as we said before.
Yeah, the river Love Boat.
Yeah, Love Boat. Then they took their lead. Like they took turns being in the lead for 10 minutes at a time, so that way whoever's in lead isn't going to get too tired. At 5:30 on the 28th of January, they stopped for camp on the first night. The tent they had was a large one. It had been customized by Igor and his friend Boris Slubstov. Yep, I'm gonna guess.
You're just giving up on me reading it for you?
Basically. It was big enough for all 9 of them to sleep into. It actually would have accommodated all 11, except for the fact that Yuri Yudin left, and the other one missed his train.
Right.
So they have extra room now.
Sweet.
The interior had curtains with compartments that could afford privacy for Zina and Luda.
Oh.
So the women have their own privacy.
This is a really fancy tent for 1950s.
Well, they're all engineering students, too.
Oh, yeah. Their shit would be so good.
Yeah, and Igor had also designed a stove that he took on this trip, and it was placed right at the front entrance with a chimney going out of the tent and upwards at a right angle. So they could cook inside.
What?
So they cooked dinner and then sat around a campfire, talking and singing, and accompanied by the mandolin, of course.
2 mandolins.
And according to diary entries, an argument breaks out that night.
My mandolin is better than your mandolin.
It's over who needs to sleep nearest to the stove, because they want to be warm. But other than that, it's not really like a fight. It's just basically, I want to sleep over there. Whatever, just a little bickering. And then they all go to sleep. On January 29th...
I picture Rustic sleeping with his
mandolin, just cuddling it.
Yeah.
So on the 29th of January, this is the second day of the journey, they start to get into the mountains. They're still following the river, and then they move from that river to another river called the River Ospia.
Can you say the word river one more time?
River. River Tan.
River.
So the group travel along a sleigh and deer trail on the riverbank used by the Mansi hunters. There's a very weak wind, and it's roughly about negative 13 degrees Celsius or 9 degrees Fahrenheit. The only thing mentioned in the diaries about this is the occasional appearance of ice along the river. So nothing of note happens here. January 30th, they woke up around 8:30 a.m. on the 30th of January, had breakfast, and then set off again. The group diary was written in while on the go. Their progress along the river was impeded by ice dams, so they couldn't... there wasn't enough ice for them to actually walk across the river itself.
What's an ice dam?
So, you build ice towards something and it'll bring the water down.
Oh, so like basically a dam, you just happen to
Make it ice.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's... I feel dumb for
but
asking.
There's not enough ice for them to actually walk on the river itself, so they have to keep moving along the sled trail used by the Mansi. So this gives them even more exposure to these people. This is their third day on foot and skis, and they're moving into territory really used by these indigenous people. There is a reference made of the tribe and use of their signs and markings on trees that they pass, which would signify that local hunters are in the area. Midway...
What are some of the signs?
I don't have them in here.
Oh.
But they referred, like, what kind of animals are in the area.
Oh.
So that's how... even though they're nomadic, that's how it kind of looks towards. Or it was like family clan. So this land belongs to this particular family from this particular tribe.
Oh, okay.
Midway through, they reach an old Mansi camp, and the deer path ends, and they continue across virgin snow. So now they're going to have to work even harder through the snow because it's 120 centimeters deep.
Oh.
So 4 feet.
Jesus. That's like my body.
So they decide to pitch their tent along a river bend, like another river bend, and the temperature plunges to negative 26 degrees Celsius or negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit. It is fucking cold.
We're getting really close to my city's cold.
Yeah. So January 31st. The sky's very clear, but there's a really strong west wind. It's causing snow to fall from the tops of trees. It's between negative 18 degrees Celsius and negative 24 degrees Celsius, or around 10 below Fahrenheit. They gradually go along the Ospia Valley, making very slow progress, 1 mile per hour. That's so bad.
Oh boy.
They took an old beaten Mansi trail, and they noticed that it had been used fairly recently by a hunting team.
Why are they still going? Jesus.
Well, it's part of the thing. They want to get the certification.
Yunden made the right call.
Yep.
And then the other guy we don't care about, but that's okay. He made the right call.
Can you imagine he's back at the fucking city being like, I missed the train. Fuck.
Oh.
They're probably having so much fun. So, the ground was starting to rise gradually, and they were getting low visibility. They prepped to pitch their tent around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. The snow was about 4 feet thick, and it was still falling. So they spent the night of the 31st at the very edge of the forest before continuing the following day. The final part of the last entry in the diary states, quote, "Tired and exhausted, we start to prepare the platform for the tent. Firewood is not enough. We didn't dig a hole for a fire. Too tired for that. We had supper right in the tent. Hard to imagine such comfort somewhere on the ridge with a piercing wind and hundreds of kilometers away from a human settlement." End quote.
I also it's kind of bad that, like, 2 of these people have done this already.
Yeah.
And somehow this act of rest is going as bad as it is.
Yes. February 1st. There's no more diary entries. So now we're going to be in really, really foggy territory. Because it's based off of what is put together after this incident.
So now we've kind of reached the incident.
Yeah. So it goes about 500... They're about 500 meters off their planned route. So almost they're half a kilometer off their planned route. They pitched their tent on the north slope of the Kolovatov, which is now known as Dyatlov Pass. It's believed to be about 2 or 3 hours after the tent is pitched that something happens that forces the group to exit the tent as fast as possible by literally slashing their way out of the tent.
Oh, wow.
February 12th, the group is expected to be in Vizhai. This February 21st. So this is February 1st. So 12 days later, they were supposed to be back at Vizhai. Never showed up. On the 21st, search parties are on their way out there. 26th, they discover the slashed tent. On the 27th of February, the first bodies are found. George and the other Yuri, George,
Yuri and Yuri,
are found next to a cedar tree. This was quickly followed by the discovery of Igor 400 meters from the cedar tree, and then the discovery of Zina 500 meters away from the cedar tree. So we're 27 days after their last journal entry.
Do they have any descriptions on what happened to their bodies?
We're going to go through that. March 5th, the body of Rustik is found. May 5th, so when the stove starts to melt a little bit, the remaining bodies of Luda, Alexander, and Nikolai are found. Sasha and Nikolai are found. On the 28th, the case into how these people died is closed. The investigation concluded that an unknown compelling force had caused the deaths. So,
that description just makes me picture, like, the Grim Reaper from Family Guy going, "Hey, guys, how's it going? I'm sorry, but you gotta die now.
Yep.
You got into too cold a territory.
Rest in peace, Norm MacDonald."
I was just about to say, I'm Norm MacDonald. Actually, that's not bad.
That's not bad.
Hey, it's not bad.
So, we're going to talk about the scene, and we're going to go through kind of like the autopsies as well. On their last evening alive, based on investigators, the party was preparing to eat their supper, and they would have gotten ready to go for bed after that. And then something happened that caused a panic, and they exited the tent as fast as possible by cutting their way out. So they couldn't even get to the front door. Something happened at the door of the tent that they had to slash their way out of the tent. Something made them grab their knives and cut their way out rather than use the front. In the rush to get out, they left the knives, hatchets, shoes, each had 2 pairs, one for outside and a soft pair for inside the tent, as well as warm clothes in the tent. So they left behind everything. They just ran for it. Right into the harsh winter conditions without any regard for anything else, like their safety or anything else. They just exposed themselves to the elements. There was 2 large gashes that had been made to allow someone the size of an adult to get through. other than the slashes, the tent itself is fine. It stood less than 1,000 feet from the summit of the mountain, and initial examinations of the tent showed the location had been selected correctly and provided very good shelter. And then there are footsteps outside the tent. 8 or 9 tracks led away from the tent and down the slope of the mountain at a distance of roughly 1/3 of a mile, so 500 meters, so half kilometer. These tracks were shown to have been made by people wearing no shoes and had characteristic columns of pressed snow around where the indentations were made for the footprints. So these are people that... These are them. This is people with no shoes.
Right.
So it's not like they found footprints of other people there. Members of the search party deduced that 8 or 9 tracks led down the slope in a single file, with a tall man at the back rather than a track would wander out in the main file. So it looks like they're just wandering around after this. So they kept finding these footprints, and then eventually it just looks like they're wandering.
So they panicked and slashed their way out so that they didn't grab anything good for being out in this weather. And then after running all together, eventually they just start splintering off and going and sort of wandering.
So what they've deduced is that they panicked, slashed their way out of the tent, but then single file and orderly went down the slope of the mountain. Like they were just wandering around in single file.
Oh, okay, so they're wandering all together.
Yeah. The first 2 bodies are found. 2 members of the main search party were looking for the new spot of the camps for a new spot for a campsite. So they were looking for another campsite to use. Oh no, they were looking for a spot for them to use as a campsite to resume the search. They approached a cedar tree downhill from the tent, and that's when they found the 2 bodies of the Yuris. They lay side by side, stripped to their underwear, as well as having bare feet. So, that's the thing with hypothermia, is that as you start to get hypothermia, you start to feel really heated. So you start to strip your clothes off because you feel hot.
That makes sense. I've noticed that once you've reached a certain point, like with a lot of things I've researched, once you reach a certain point in the opposite temperature, it starts once you reach a certain point in a temperature, it starts feeling like the opposite side.
Yes. It's just like in the Punisher movie when he's talking about how he'll use a blowtorch on that guy's spine. He's like, you'll feel cold instead of warm. Like, you'll feel cold instead of hot.
Which is a thing that actually could happen, even though he, used a popsicle.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's, I wonder if it has to do with just, the way the nerve endings, die in that moment.
That's what my guess would be. So, near the bodies were the remains of a fire that was cut from small trees. It had been cut with a knife. So one of the Yuris had a knife on them. They must have tried to keep the fire going as long as they could. But it only, according to what they saw, it was only lasting for about an hour to an hour and a half. And it wasn't sufficient enough to warm them in the freezing conditions. There were also burn marks on their hands and feet, which are believed to have been caused when they put their frostbitten feet and hands into the fire to warm them and did not feel the pain. It's believed that they froze to death while sitting next to the fire. So, think about that. You're getting frostbite from jumping out of this tent, and then you make a fire, and then you're so cold that you just stick your hand right in the fire. But because it's already got all those dead nerve endings from the frostbite, you don't feel any of it.
Yeah, when warming hands like that, it probably doesn't help either, because that they put it right in the fire, right? Because you're supposed to do it slowly.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, in order to potentially save anything. And they were just full in the fire.
So, the cedar tree was almost 1 mile from the tent. So they ran a good distance. Well, they walked a good distance, according to the thing. And the branches had been broken at a height of approximately 13 to 16 feet. So they basically climbed up this tree to make branches for this fire and used the knife to cut off the small sections. Pieces of skin from one or more of the members were found on the tree from where they scraped themselves while climbing up. More members of the search party arrived on the scene, and another body was found roughly 300 meters away, which is Igor Dyatlov. Igor was lying on his back, his head pointing in the direction of their tent, and someone... So, Manzi hunters and their dogs then found the body of Zina Kimilgurova. She was found approximately 1/3 of a mile from...
Manzi hunters and their dogs?
Yeah, so I guess when the search party was going through, they ran into Manzi hunters, and the Manzi hunters was like, well, we just found this body over here.
Oh, well, that's really nice of them to be like, that girl's over there.
Yeah. So she was found approximately 1/3 of a mile from the other 3 bodies. Like Igor, her body was pointed towards the tent. It appeared as if the first 4 had been all together near a cedar tree, started the small fire, and that upon realizing the little fire wasn't going to keep them alive, Igor and Zina had tried to get back to the tent. On March 2nd, another search party found the base camp that the hikers had been making down by the river, where they stored a bunch of their equipment, including 120 pounds worth of food. So they had left a campsite behind for their return, so that they could come and pick everything back up. So 120 pounds worth of food, a pair of skis, ski shoes, and Rustik's mandolin.
Was it still in condition?
I don't know.
That's the only thing I care about.
So, all these items have been found weeks later and ruled out the students being followed by anyone intending on robbing them. March 3rd, the body of Rustik was found. His body was near the bodies of Zina and Igor. It was initially missed due to being a little more hidden in the snow. He was 600 feet ahead of Igor, 500 feet behind Zina, in a straight line headed to the tent. All 3 of them had been trying to crawl back to the tent. They were so frozen solid, they were just crawling in the ground.
Jesus.
The other two bodies were found 2 months later. May 4th, the remaining bodies were found 230 feet away from the cedar tree. Their bodies were found under 15 feet of snow. Why they were apart from the other hikers, nobody knows. It's thought that maybe they had a disagreement on their survival chances, and they split up into 2 camps.
Okay, so they went in a different direction.
Yeah.
Than the
the bodies of Luda, Sasha, and Nikolai are all found together. Luda was found wearing clothing taken off of George and Bear Yuri.
No.
So she had so maybe they came back and got everything. And there's some really weird injuries to these bodies. We'll start with Bear Yuri. He had a pulmonary edema. And he had a pulmonary contusion and a bruised lung. He had burns on his foot and right temple. His ears, nose, and lips were covered in blood. They described the injuries.
They were still intact though, just covered in blood.
Just covered in blood. All the injury, like bruises and abrasions, were non-life threatening. He had basically been hitting himself with rocks and ice in the state of agony. So his state of death is known as hypothermia. He was found with no shoes on. So it looks like he just beating the shit out of himself to cause these bruises and stuff like that, and probably the bruised lung.
So he's probably suffering so much pain that it's just more pain is the solution.
He's probably trying to distract himself from the cold.
Yeah. Only Russians would come up with that idea.
George had bit a piece of his own knuckle to stay awake, or stifle a cry, and had third-degree burns that could not be sustained if you fell asleep still alive. The presence of skin between his teeth had been torn from his right hand, and that suggests that he tried to stay on the cedar tree as long as he could to stay awake, and his irresponsive hands by biting himself. So he was just trying to do that, or trying to stifle his own cries. So, like, if somebody was chasing them, or something was chasing them, then he was trying to hold it off. He had burns on his left leg and left foot. His death is listed as hypothermia. He was also not wearing shoes. Igor had been vomiting blood. He also had injuries to the joint on the right hand, the metacarpal phalangia, with brown red bruises. This is a common injury in hand-to-hand fights. When you make a fist, it's the part of your hand you use to hit somebody, so right at the top there. So he had bruises there. That's
why it's better to do the Bruce Lee thing and pseudo punch with like an open hand and then
let
have
it collapse.
Close. Yeah.
They speculate on who he was possibly fighting with or hitting. And he also wasn't wearing any shoes. Official cause of death, hypothermia. Zina had a baton-shaped bruise on her waist, which shows that maybe she had a fight or she was being restrained. She had numerous unexplained abrasions to her face and hands. The official cause of death is listed as hypothermia due to violent action.
So she was just too beat up to deal with the cold
anymore.
At all, and
She also had no shoes, but she did have 3 pairs of socks and multiple layers of clothes. Rustic suffered blunt trauma to the head. He had a fractured skull. Someone or something had hit him. The medical autopsy shows that he probably suffered loss of coordination due to the initial shock of the blow, and that sped up his death from hypothermia. So he got hit pretty damn hard. Despite his injuries, hypothermia is still listed as the cause of death. As with Igor, there were bruises on his knuckles consistent with a fist fight. But unlike Igor, both his hands had these bruises. So Igor only had one hand that had the bruises, and he had both. So he was hitting something with both fists. Luda was found missing her tongue and eyes.
Whoa!
She was laying on a natural ledge of water. She was laying on a kind of natural ledge of water rolling over it. And this could have sped up her soft tissue putrefaction. Some scavengers could have taken her eyes and tongue. However, she was found with 100 grams of coagulated blood in her stomach, which would indicate she was still alive when her tongue was ripped out of her head. The blood then was pooling into her stomach because her tongue was gone. Her nose was broken and 4 ribs, and so were 4 ribs on her right side. She was also missing her upper lip. She also had no footwear. Her cause of death is not hypothermia. Is listed as a hemorrhage of the right atrium of the heart, multiple fractured ribs, and internal bleeding. So something hit her something beat the shit out of her and broke her apart. And that's what killed her. It's worth noting that none of the bodies were showing any signs of sexual activity near the time of death. So none of these were raped.
Oh, I see.
Sasha's corpse was found missing its eyeballs. He was found holding a pen and a notepad, but hadn't written anything down. His chest had been crushed. On the right side, there were 2 fractured lines through his rib cage. Ribs 2 to 6 were all broken. He also had an open wound on his right side of his skull with exposed bone. A lot of the wounds were in line with those suffered from experiencing the shockwave of a bomb.
What?
Yeah. His crushed chest is what was the cause of his pain, the cause of his death, dying of internal bleeding. Alexander's corpse was found missing some soft tissue around the eyes. The skull bones were exposed. He had a broken nose with an open wound behind his left ear. He also had what on the autopsy report is a strangely deformed neck. His injuries are similar to those of someone who died in a fight. A snapped neck and a blow to the back of the ear were consistent with how military special forces would kill someone. His official cause of death was hypothermia despite his injuries, but the deformed neck kind of gets me, and the fact that they said that it's basically how someone would die if he was in a fight.
Yeah, like a good neck snap type of thing.
Nikolai's corpse was found with several internal head traumas, an injury consistent with a high-speed car crash or a fall from several stories high or more. No damage to the soft tissue of the head. Head trauma is what caused his death. So out of all 9, they have a mixture of hypothermia and injuries consistent with being attacked. No sex is the factor, according to these things, so it's not like this was a rape. At least 2 of the hikers had hurt hands. No one had any shoes on. Some were huddled up, as though they were in a snow den. And
2 of them...
Some seemed to be trying to get to the tent.
And 2 of them apparently suffered damage the equivalent of an explosion in a car crash.
Yeah, or a fall from a fucking building.
That's... when I heard the explosion, my first instinct was that engineered stove might have exploded, but there's no sign of it being exploded, right? If it were, would have been stated when they found the camp.
Yeah.
So, what the fuck was...
So, there's also some reports of this that state that there is radiation, levels of radiation found on the bodies as well. So, it's odd that there's a little bit of radiation on these bodies as well. So, there's a few possibilities of what happened, and we'll try to explore these a little bit. The first one is very unlikely. Some people think that a Yeti attacked them.
Yeah, no.
I'm gonna go the other way from that.
As much as we like to explore our cryptids, I feel like this does not feel like a Yeti circumstance.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say or dismiss whatever evidence there is for a Yeti in this, but I'm gonna say that this doesn't feel like that kind of an attack.
No, I think it's an irradiated bear.
Theory number 2.
An irradiated bear.
UFOs and aliens. So this is a very popular theory. They basically are talking about how with the radiation and stuff, it could be significant in some alien abductions or so on. Claimed alien abductions, there's always the factor that these people have slightly higher radiation levels because of where they're taken. I'm not really going to go on this one either because even though I wasn't there, obviously, it seems I don't think an alien came and beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, if it was a matter of abduction and study, I feel like they would have. If we're going on assumptions of how aliens react, because we have limited understanding of what aliens are.
Yeah.
But if their technology is as advanced as it is, they would not have had to fight with them at all.
Yeah.
They would have just had to. They probably have ways of sedating them.
The only thing that I can see being an actual argument for that is possibly the more intense injuries, like the one of a very intensive fight, or the one that is a car crash. I could see that, the fall from several from very high. However, they also climbed a fucking tree.
Yeah, not to mention, they all died of hypothermia, which implies that whatever was at the tent never actually got them anywhere.
Unless the ones that died from the injuries were the ones that got.
Yeah, but even then, the girl died. Her tongue got cut out before she died because of the blood pooling. And if yet again, going back to the idea that these are advanced alien creatures studying us, they would have cauterized a wound like that already because they'd want the sample to be more alive so they can take more.
Plus, they wouldn't want the blood leaking out of the samples anyway, so they would have cauterized it so that they have something to study.
Exactly. I somehow, for a circumstance surrounding aliens, we have very logical points of view.
I know.
It's like... Yeah, we have no actual evidence for any of this or any real way to speculate, but we're just like, no, if totally aliens would cauterize the wound.
They're not barbaric. So, C, military weapons testings. So, there's memos that eventually surfaced revealing that Russians were testing rockets in this area during the time of the hike. However, the military denied any tests being done, but a 2008 conference at the Ural State Technical University, together with the Dyatlov Group Memorial Foundation, decided that military testing was to blame. The Federal Security Service responded that of all those cases involved with this case, that all of those involved in this case have long since died. So, if it did happen, it's not intentional. But they detonated, basically the Russian government wants to say that they detonated a weapon in the area or something, and that's what the explanation from the university is that there was a weapon detonated in the area, and that's what killed them all.
But the tent was fine.
That's what I mean. It's weird. And for them all to die of for most of them to die of hypothermia,
yeah.
So maybe there was a type of detonation. The students realized that, oh shit, there's something that went off over there, and they ran off into the back. But still, that doesn't really explain why they cut themselves out of the fucking tent and
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised. I doubt it's any sort of real cover-up, but I would imagine something like that is just the government being like, leave us alone. This is the explanation. Deal with it.
Yeah. Then there was infrasound, which is a really weird theory. It basically is another technological theory suggesting that infrasound was responsible for their sudden unpleasant feelings. A man named Donnie L. Carr, who's an author and filmmaker responsible for the Kurt Cobain documentary Soaked in Bleach, also wrote a book called Dead Mountain, The Untold Story of Dyatlov Pass Incident. He spent 5 years researching the incident and undertook the trek himself. And he believes that there's a phenomenon known as the Kármán vortex street, which could have produced a terrifying, powerful sound that was proven to induce irrational fear in humans. So, his theory is that something there caused a really weird phenomenon from the fierce winds and the cold and the way the mountains are shaped and everything is there. And it made them irrationally afraid.
That's not too bad of a theory, because that would explain the fight. Two of them were fighting. When the other two kind of came to their senses, they tried to make a fire. The only ones that it doesn't really explain are all the brutal deaths.
Yeah. So, this thing causes a type of ultrasound. And not ultrasound, infrasound, which is the opposite of ultrasound, which is a type of vibration in the air that is a frequency so low instead of so high that can't be picked up by your ears, but it's just a feeling you start to get. Mm-hmm. It causes loss of sleep, shortness of breath, and extreme dread. I I can see it, but I also, like, there's a lot of weird things in this.
Yeah, like I was saying, the fist fight and it seems to make a little more sense. And then when they realize came to, some of them start crawling back to the tent. But like the very brutal deaths are the ones that are just really hard to sort of say, hey, this was a sound, unless the person was so affected by it that they like hallucinated, like the girl hallucinated her tongue was a snake and had to cut it off type of thing.
Yeah, or had somebody cut it out for her. Like, I don't know. There's also the theory of an avalanche, but I don't think this is an avalanche.
Nobody said anything about an avalanche.
I'm fairly certain this isn't things that happened in an avalanche. And then there's the theory that the Manzi killed them, like some hunters.
See, that sounds like the most logical explanation of all of them.
Yeah, so there's no documented prison breakouts from the local corrective labor colony that's nearby. So the indigenous Manzi people would be living in the area. They were following these trails. They came across a tent, came across a settlement. Manzi in the area had been where the bodies were found. So they also found a body. So they knew the area. They definitely had the skills to hide their ski tracks and hunt the hikers in the woods.
I wonder if you're saying there are different, like, tribes and shit. If it was one more violent tribe than the other, and then the group that showed up and found a body was like, yeah, there's another one.
Yeah.
That asshole tribe, they're doing it again.
Yeah. Then there's a theory of psychedelic mushrooms. So they took shrooms and had a bad fucking trip. I'm gonna walk away from that one.
They had such a bad trip that the hallucination of falling off a 40-story building and crashing into the ground was so realistic that their body just collapsed in that very way.
So there's also a theory, and it's a pretty decent theory too. A vlogger known as Leminino, yeah, he's Swedish. He's from a YouTube channel. He came up with this idea that, I'll just do a quote of his. Quote, why would they leave the tent? I would argue that the only thing that would cause them to leave would be an immediate threat inside the tent. If it was something outside, such as an animal or a UFO, there'd be no reason to cut open the tent. There were no signs of avalanche. However, they could have escaped believing an avalanche was tumbling towards them. The problem with that theory is the footprints showed them walking in a calm, orderly manner down the slope, as opposed to running in a panic. So something caused them to panic inside the tent, but once outside they were calm, and made a conscious decision to walk down the slope. Their external stove was completely unique and homemade, a homemade design, as the leader of the group had built the stove himself. We know that they had used the stove on the night of the incident before the incident took place, and as partially eaten fried ham and bacon were found inside the tent. I think that after disassembling the stove and removing the exhaust pipe, the embers inside the stove were accidentally reignited. As the exhaust pipe had been removed, the smoke would have filled the tent in seconds. As they attempted to get control of the flame, they cut a few holes at the top of the tent to vent the smoke. When that didn't work, they became increasingly difficult to breathe. The side of the tent was slashed open, and they all escaped in a state of panic. The burn marks on their bodies and clothing could have been from the scalding hot metal stove. Several members of the groups were found with blood around their mouths and coughing up blood. Could be a symptom of smoke inhalation. Some of them were intoxicated, which could have affected their judgment as well as their sensibility to the cold. So he thinks that he thinks that the stove...
The joke.
He thinks that the stove... It's because I saw the next line and the two words combined. But he thinks that the stove, when it was taken apart, reignited in the like inside the tent and caused them to have to escape. But that does explain a lot too. It's really crazy to think about, but I gotta get out of the tent, but now you're out of the tent, so we're gonna have to walk away and see if the tent catches fire.
Yeah.
So a little more of this is a photo like of this possibility is a photo taken of Alexander the day before he died wearing a severely burned jacket. So did he burn it on the stove the day before? There is a diary entry that mentions that the first night they camped and set up the tent, the stove presented some problems when they made it. Igor didn't buy this thing, he built it. So it's all built by him. So it's an experiment that he tried.
Yeah.
And then if they're out of the environment, like if they're out in the freezing elements, and it's Igor's fault, then a fight might break out. And in the fight, they crack at each other. He ends up fighting Rustic, cracks him good. This fractures his skull. The others intervene. Tempers are going crazy. More injuries happen. The camp breaks down in two halves. The anti-Igor, it's all his fault, and they take off to try and get away from him and build a snow den. And then the people who are like, you know what, he tried his best, and we have a fire, let's get back to the tent. So that's why there's two groups. And the alcohol that he's talking about, there isn't any mention in any toxicology report of alcohol, so I guess he's just kind of surmising that maybe they had been drinking and that would have caused
Oh, I thought he said they were intoxicated, which was because of the smoke. I thought that was the idea he was.
No, they've been drinking. That's what his theory is, that they've probably been drinking.
Because they're Russian.
Yeah, and then the whole, explosion or high fall, he fell out of a tree, and the snow prevented any soft tissue from being damaged, hard.
Wait, was that... But was that the same guy who fell out of the tree? I thought it was the Yuris underneath the tree.
The Yuris aren't the ones who fell out of the tree. That's a different one.
No, the Yuris were underneath the tree. The dude who fell...
Yeah, but he was trying to get to the tent. He was trying to get to the tent too. He was not too far.
Oh, okay. And he just fell out of a tree?
Yeah. That's what I'm assuming.
Okay.
So, it's just really weird how the Russians just try to close this case as fast as possible, though. So,
because that if he fell out of a tree, fair enough. That still leaves tongue cut and eyes missing.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe one of the people going back to the tent also had their eyes missing.
Yeah. Which they're trying to explain with scavengers. So,
what about the radiation?
That's where the odd thing is too. They don't really sources claim it, but nobody ever addresses it.
See, that to me is probably why the government is keeping it
low key,
because the radiation is probably the important part here. Like I said it before, I'm going to say it again: irradiated bear. Have you ever seen the movie Annihilation? No. There's a very scary bear scene with a crazy mutant bear thing that steals people's voices. So, fuck. I could believe... this fictional movie has made me a believer that a very real radiated bear could kill these 10 or 9 Russian college students.
Alright, so, I'm
just
gonna get away from this irradiated bear. Yuri Yudin, he died April 27th, 2013 at the age of 75. The only survivor of this whole thing. Yeah. It's just so odd.
Either way, I think there's definitely... taking the irradiated bear thing out of the question, I feel like there was probably radiation in an area really close by, and there was something that might have been a little bit irradiated that had reached a certain level of aggression, which had forced, and that was in the area when when whatever happened.
Yeah.
Though her tongue was taken out when she was alive.
And the eyeballs missing. Yeah.
Like, a creature eating the eyeballs maybe, but something actively took her tongue out while she was alive. And left her alive. Like, if it was an aggressive animal from radiation, oh my god,
It's weird, eh?
Radiated bear, going back to that.
So in 2015, there was also an investigation that reviewed all the evidence that was compiled. And they completed this investigation between 2015 and 2019.
So not too long ago.
And it's by the Investigative Committee of the Russian Federation.
So it wasn't straightforward.
No. They said that there is kind of a possibility of an avalanche happening, but I'm still not entirely on that. They confirmed that the weather of the night of the tragedy was harsh, with wind speeds up to hurricane force of 20 to 30 meters per second, so 45 to 67 miles per hour, or 72 or 108 kilometers per hour.
So the dude who looked like he hit a fall could have also just been blown by the extreme wind into a tree or something.
So on February 1st, the group arrives at this place and they put up the tent on the open slope. There's no natural barrier such as a forest. And on the day and the preceding days afterwards, there's heavy snowfall. It just keeps persisting. There's strong winds, so they're trapped inside the tent. So we're not confirmed that they even died on that first day. The group traversed the slope, digging a tent site in the snow, weakened at the snow base. During the night, the snow field above starts to go above the tent and started to slide down under the weight of the new snow, gradually pushing the tent fabric starting from the entrance. The group wakes up, starts to evacuate in a panic, which then leaves them with only some able to put on warm clothes. The entrance blocked, the group escape through a cut hole, and they descend the slope to find a place perceived to be safe from the avalanche, which is only 1,500 meters down at the forest base. Because of the members having incomplete clothing, the group splits. Two of the group are only in their underwear and pajamas when they're found in Siberia, near a Siberian cedar tree near a fire pit, and the bodies are found first and confirmed. 3 hikers, including Dyatlov, attempted to climb back to the tent, possibly to get sleeping bags. They had better clothes than those at the fire pit, so they were more adequately... Basically, when they split off, it was that you guys don't have as much clothes, so we have to keep you warm by the fire. We'll go because we have more clothes. But the bodies are found 300 to 600 meters from the campfire, and it poses suggesting that they had fallen exhausted when trying to climb in the deep snow in the extremely cold weather. The remaining 4 are equipped with warm clothing and footwear, and we're still trying to find or build a better camping place in the forest further down the slope. Their bodies were found 70 meters from the fireplace. So...
Okay, so, like, basically everything makes sense except for the extreme injuries involving the eyes and the tongue.
Yeah.
So, I guess if you don't think of that as part of the same incident, Scavengers does kind of make sense, in general.
Yeah. It's basically the only extra option that you got is that if you ignore part of this, the rest of it adds up.
Yeah.
Or it's a radiated bear.
Oh, you know what? I like that idea. Let's go with that.
Let's go with that idea.
So an irradiated bear. You hear that, folks? An irradiated bear killed these people. Now, is that our episode?
That's it.
Holy shit. That was one wild ride. And it was all solved because of an irradiated bear. I I don't think there's any more theories. If people think that there is an alternative to this, shut up. It's an irradiated bear.
And you can tweet that to I'm glad you asked _
You know, you make a really good point. And that being said, you can also follow us at BA Chaos Jar.
What a segue.
BA Chaos Jar on Instagram and Twitter. You can also follow us on Facebook at BA Chaos Jar, which is also the name of our YouTube channel where we post all these videos on. Or the cat's playing with a plastic bag in the background. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, rate, review. You
Follow
can
the little bell. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. You can also become a patron on patreon.com/chaosjar and give us a little dough and everything. All that in the show notes and more. Probably not more. Just in the that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's really it. So, Kabovrod, say goodbye, but also remind you, watch out for irradiated bear.
So, yeah.
Oh, for some reason, there was weird silence.
Yeah.
I apologize for this.
So-
Technical difficulties. Sagraf edited it out.